Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Alex from EES, and I'm the head trainer here. And today, what we're going to be doing is our first ever webinar that we've done for the software. So, what we're going to be planning on trying to do on this session is just to get you all up and running on both the estimating and the PDF takeoff for the new platform. This session will be based around the electrical database, but if we do have any mechanical users with us today, please still stay around. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same procedures as everything else. It's just, of course, your database options will be different. That's the only thing that's going to be a bit different here. Okay, so what we are going to do then is just going to get started with all of this then. So what I'm going to do is just get my screen shared with you all. Okay, right. So what we should all be looking at here, this is my personal desktop, okay? I will be hosting this on the cloud version of the EES platform, okay? If you do have the local version installed, that's absolutely fine. I'll still go through all of the procedures for you and explain if we do have any particular differences in any of these particular areas, okay? So all you got to do is give that a double click. I've actually already got mine already opened up here, which is wonderful. All right, so we log in here. So you can see this is the EES platform because we've got that, we've got our background there for you, as well as all of our contact details down there if you ever do need us. So like I said, today I'm going to be going through both the estimating and the PDF takeoff, or just the basics of the two. Okay, so I've got the estimating all opened here. So I've signed in under my name of Welcome Alex. Okay, and what we've basically got here, this is the front page of the estimating, okay, where we can either come in and create any new projects or go back and access any of the existing ones that we've created. Up here at the top is a variety of different sort of tools and options, which is your back-end settings. So this is where you'll find your customer information, your labor rates, hours per day on site, and sometimes discounts depending on how that's all been set up. All of that can be found there. And also, sorry, something I completely skipped through. If you do have any questions at any point with regards to absolutely anything that I've covered or anything that I've not mentioned at all, we are doing a little bit of a Q&A towards the end of the session. So just pop any questions you'd like answering just through the Q&A, or if you prefer, you can raise your hand and you can speak with the group if you're going to find that easier to do. Okay, so feel free to pop those through at any time. So yeah, tools is all the back end of your software. That's where all your settings are basically. Okay, but we're not going to worry about that too much today. All right, we do have the search database function. So if you do know a particular product code of an item and you want to see if that is available in the database, you can of course type that in. So if I just go for the 47 white, the one we all know, and I press enter on that, brought that up. And it's telling us that that is basically what the item is. It's an MK Logic 13 amp 2 gang double pole switch socket. Okay, that's in the database. I have 64.45% discount, and it has an installation time of 15 minutes for that particular item. See, that's the sort of stuff that you can look up on that screen there. Of course, if you want to see any live prices on that at all or anything, you're going to have to view that inside of a project. Of course, whenever you need absolutely any help with anything, you'll always have your support button up on the top right of your page. That's always going to give you our contact telephone number, our email address, as well as our website, and these two buttons down here. So you can submit suggestions to us to see features and changes that you'd like to see incorporated into the software. Or if you're having any problems and you need our help, then you can just submit a ticket to us, which is the same as emailing, but at least that way you can just fill out the form on screen and you haven't got to come off of the software, type in our email address and everything else. So you might find that a little bit easier if you do ever want to send us across an email. And then the cloud documents is the only button which is actually going to be a little bit different if you are using the locally installed version. Okay, so the cloud documents basically opens up the file explorer for the cloud storage. Okay, so as you can see, this is my cloud folder, so we do name it that way, and I have tried to make it so it's nice and easily distinguishable between this being a cloud version, or if I minimize this and just show you my my local version, which you can see a lot more busier, has a lot sort of going on it. So all that's going to be basically used for is when we need to upload our particular drawings if we're going to be using the PDF takeoff. And we're also going to need this once we actually finish the quote and we want to copy the quote back over onto our personal PCs. But I'm going to go through that a little bit more detail when we actually get up to those stages. Okay, so don't worry about this too much for now. So I'm just going to press close that. Obviously, if it's all locally installed, you don't need to worry about that part at all. All right, so let's dive straight into it. Okay, so I'm going to go for new. All right, so I'm just going to create a brand new project. Now, as soon as you actually create a project, that's going to then bring you onto the first stage out of the 6, as you can see down here. So we've got job header, takeoff, unprice, calculate, summary table, and bills, right? So that's the entire procedure of start to end to actually complete, to start and complete the quote. So the first bit we actually need to start off with is just this job information up here along the top, the job header, and then we can look at the labor, and then we've also got some advanced settings down here at the bottom. Okay, so first off up here is the job code box. Now we're allowed up to 12 characters. We can use letters or numbers. It doesn't really like spaces and symbols, but it doesn't mind a hyphen. We can actually get that job code to actually be pre-filled for you and just roll on to the next chronological number. If that is something that you would be interested in, obviously just let me know in the Q&A bit and I'll show you how to turn that function on. Alternatively, you will just have to come in here and write in whatever the quotation is that you're particularly doing. So as an example, if I go Q for quote, then the year number, and then I might put what quotation number I'm currently on at the moment. Okay. Then after that, 2 boxes I would always recommend that you do fill out would be the job name, and then below that would be the client name. So job name, nice and easy, you just say what the job's called. So we could just call this EES training for today. And then in the client drop-down list, you should be able to just click onto here. And then what you can do is you can actually add in all of your various different customers by just going on add new customer, filling out the form and pressing the confirm button down here on the bottom right of your screen. Okay, that's then going to create them up as one of the clients in your drop-down menu. So you're only going to have to add that client's information in once, and then you're going to forever have that available. If your database is shared between you and your colleagues, whenever your colleague makes a client, you will also get that client in your drop-down list because it's the same drop-down list basically. So for today, though, I'll just pick EES. Okay, so they are the 3 things I'd always recommend that you do fill out is as a minimum on this page. Okay, so we have this additional function down here which is called tender submission date. So it's a very nice one. We can simply just tick the box and then just click here on the little calendar sort of menu here, and that then allows us to then pick when the job needs to be submitted by. The entire purpose of that function is then when we're on the amend job screen, once we've created the project, we will be able to see when the date of when the job was created, last amended, and then what the submission date is. Okay, and what it will also do is actually change the color of the job for us. So if it's green, we've got lots of time. If the job changes to amber, then we're getting close. And then if the job is red, then we are past the submission date and we are late, basically. Okay, so that's always something that we can sort of configure. We don't have to work traffic light coloring. We can change that. More importantly, we can change the dates of when the colors will actually change to make it a little bit more suitable for your current workflow. Then we have this other option up here, which is a parent code. Okay, I think a better way of describing this might be to call it a grouping code, because effectively that's what you can do with the parent code. So you can associate the same codes to multiple different projects that you've created just to help you group and categorize them better on the amend job screen. There's a variety of reasons why people would actually use this. So whether they wanted to have the job code and all of the revisions and they wanted to find all of that under the same parent code. Some people would actually use the box which we title as job code as a quotation code. And then if they actually find that they do win the job, they will then use the box we call parent code as the actual job code. So if you look at the parent code and think, oh, I think it will be suitable for that, then that is what you need to be using it for, basically. Okay, but if you can't think of anything currently for it at the moment, then don't worry about it. Just leave it for now. You can always come back and fill that in at a later date if you would ever liked it. Okay, so now we're coming down here to the labor settings. Okay, so this is how the labor is going to be set up by default, be set up in this particular way. Okay, and what you should already have set up in your database is your variety of different labor rates. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a quick button that you can click on this screen to actually view the labor rates that you have set up in the software. Okay, so I'm just going to come down here and I'm just going to tick this box here, set fixed labor rate. That then allows me to then view in my drop down. I go to add new / amend, and I can view all of the different labor rates that I have set up here in the software. Okay, obviously if you have rates in a couple of in there at zeros or anything that you would like to fill out, simply just type in the number. Same if you'd like some additional options being added, you can just come down here to the bottom and add that onto the description bit down here at the bottom, and then just like I said, just fill out the labor rate bit there on the side. Okay, so that's how you can tell what labor rates you've got set up in the system from this page. Now, I would recommend that you come back and you untick that box there so it goes back to looking like this after you've done that, okay? So we've made sure that we've got our labor rates set up in the project, which is perfect. We can set up some additional functionality such as travel distance, okay? If this is something you're interested in, just click here on these two boxes, and then you can actually set up a cost per mile, which I'll do at 45 pence per mile. And then what you can actually do, if it's actually applicable to you, if you actually travel far out quite often and you do actually require lodging, you can get the system to incorporate that in. So I can put in, say, £450 based off of a 4-night stay if they do go away, but that won't actually occur until we surpass 80 miles, okay? So the system does believe now if I were to input 79 miles here, it would assume I'm doing 70 miles there and back each day. As soon as we go over that 80 mark, it would assume that we're going to have one trip up there for the start of the week. Then the lodging rate will kick in for the duration of the week, and then we'll get one trip return home for the Friday, and then the week will then repeat itself after that. Once you've filled that box in once, you'll never actually have to fill it in again. This travel distance box will come unlocked, and you can simply just say how many miles away the job is, and the system will work it out accordingly for you. Which is a very similar thing to this daily additional cost box. Okay, so this is any daily additional costs for the labourers. Okay, so if you needed to allow £10 for parking for each day, or toll booth, congestion charge, lunch allowances, anything like that, this is going to be the box that's most suitable for you to use. Okay, so you can simply say, I want to allow £10 for parking each day, and that's all that needs to be done. All right. Now, you do have this little box down here, okay? This is a site difficulty factor, or a better way of thinking about it, it's a labor time multiplier, okay? So this is going to be suitable for you to fill out if you're doing any work for a particular project where you think you can have a lot of non-productive time, okay? The three examples I can think of for this would be something like a prison, airport, or any hospital work. Okay, so the times where there's going to be not a lot of productive time. So if you think that the job is obviously just going to take twice as long or time and a half, you can then apply that directly on this first page, and then when you move forward, all of our times will then be multiplied for you by 2. Only do this if you believe that the entire job is going to have a higher difficulty factor, okay? If you do believe that the job is pretty much going to be standard, except for one area that has some higher ceilings or something like that, then we can apply the site difficulty factor on the next page where it's going to be a little bit more suitable, okay? So only fill this out if you know that the entire job you're going to do is going to have a lot of non-productive time on. Realistically, on this page, other than these 2 tick boxes here for saying it is a supply only, so material only job, or an install only job, I wouldn't worry about the advanced options too much, okay? But obviously, you got these 2 tick boxes here if that is going to be relevant for you. But if it's just going to be a standard supply and fit job, or even a standard supply and fit job with some fix only items, just leave these 2 tick boxes as they are, and then just come down here to the bottom and press continue. And that will actually now create the project for you. And that's going to move us on now to stage 2 of takeoff. So what that basically means now, if once this allows us and it has moved us forward, if we were to come out of the job now, we would be able to go onto amend job, and we would see that job is actually created with all of the detail that we filled in. And obviously we can jump back in and amend that at any given point. Okay, wonderful. So this has now brought us on to the takeoff page, which is primarily split and built up into 3 different areas, okay? You've got your item selection over here in the gray area on the left-hand side. Like I said at the start, if we do have any mechanical people with us here today, the only difference that you'll see is obviously these categories of materials: cable, down socket switches, and spares. You will, of course, not have cable management, lighting. You're going to have mechanical related trades of like tube fittings and valves, sanitary ware, those type of material groupings. Okay. We have this middle bit here to build the section structure for the tender return document, which we'll go through in just a moment. And then we have this big sort of grid over here on the right-hand side, which is called the examine grid, because it's where it's going to show all of the individual line items that we've placed inside each of the individual sections that we've created. So basically, the first bit that you're always going to want to start off, in my opinion, is always going to be the section structure, okay? And Of course, there's a variety of different ways that the section structures have to be built. Sometimes you might actually get to create them yourself. Sometimes it'll be a very detailed report given to you from the client, which you have to conform to. There's a variety of different things. So I'm just going to show you how to make up a basic section structure live on screen, okay? And I'm hoping from doing this, that then gives you all the idea and of how to actually create any of the other sort of structures that you would have to create, okay? So I'm just going to go for a nice simple one of having a few different services, and within those services, I'm going to break those down into different locations, or you could do it as drawings, plots, it doesn't necessarily matter. Now, you can always just do that for your own benefit. Even if your client hasn't asked you for that level of breakdown, you can always break lighting up into the different drawings or plots just for your own benefit, and then not show the client as much information when you go to produce the quote. But anyway, let me show you how we would do this, okay? So what you'd want to do is input, in my instance, what I'm going to do, sorry, is I'm going to input in my sort of first service, okay? So I'm just going to go for small power. All right, nice and easy. Press enter on my keyboard to lock that in. All right, so that's locked in up there. Like I said, I want to give this particular section subsections. So what I'm going to do now is come down here to the bottom, and rather than having A highlighted there in the orange color, I'm going to highlight B. So now B is the highlighted color. And I'm just going to come here and I'm going to hit the plus icon. And you'll see what that does is it turns small power now into a folder and then puts this item inside of that folder. And then this new section, as it's labeled, is going to be my floor numbers, which I'm going to go with. So I'm going to have ground floor, press enter, lock that in. I'm going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to leave B highlighted, okay? So I'm just going to leave that as it is. I'm just going to hit another plus icon. And now I can just write in first floor. And obviously I can keep going with this for as many different floors as I have. There is no maximum amount of subsections that I could have within small power or anything like that. I could have as many floors as I could possibly need. We do also have the ability to then make these floors into folders and have a variety of different subfolders within that itself, which would be a C level. And of course, then we can even go down to a D level section. I'm actually hoping for the majority of the time, like the majority of users' feedback that we've had so far, that it is mostly just A and B level sections that you will be using, and occasionally a C level, and very, very rarely a D level. All right, so once you've actually made one up, and that's all I'm going to do it for today with just the 2 floors, okay? I need to then make my next A level section for the next service. So what I can do if I want to is just come down here and go A and then plus, and then I can add on one for, say, lighting. And then I can repeat the same process of what I did before of going B plus ground floor, and then just hit the plus icon again for first floor, just like that. So now I've got an identical copy of that section, okay? That's how you can just build it up. Obviously, if you've got the same floors within each one of your services that you want to do to speed up the process a little bit, you can always just right click the main folder that you created, and you can come down here and click on the option of duplicate, which will then just create an identical copy of that section structure. And then all you would do is then rename this to the next actual sort of service that you would need, basically. So there we are. I've got lighting, small power, and containment. Just a very, very simple section breakdown. I'm hoping that gives you all the idea of what you need to do. And if you then realize, oh, I've not made it in the right order, I was actually meant to have containment, lighting, small power, so it went alphabetically. Look, I could just drag containment to where I need it to be, drag lighting to where I need it to be. And then this is something I personally like to do. I like to always right click and press keep globally expanded, so all the sections forever stay open. I personally prefer looking at it in this way, but of course it's optional. You do it however you feel comfortable in doing it, okay? So once you've actually created up your section structure, you do have the ability to save that as a template. So next time you start a job, you can just import your templates. You can save as many different templates as you would like as well, okay? You're not limited to the amount of templates that you can have created, okay? And just as an extra thing, if you do ever create an additional section that you didn't mean to accidentally or anything like that, or something that's no longer needed, if you want to delete the section, it's as easy as just right clicking it and pressing the delete button, or alternatively, have it highlighted and come down here and press the minus symbol. Both will give you the same prompt of, are you sure you want to delete this following section? Press yes, and that will then remove that section for you, okay? So that's 2 ways in which you can delete your sections. Now, once you've actually created up your section structure on screen like we have now, and I know obviously when you guys will do it, you'll probably do it in a lot more detail than what I've created today. But once you've actually done this, this is then where we end up going down one of 2 routes, basically. Either the time where we will be using EES's PDF takeoff to actually get the quantities off of the drawing for the items. Or maybe you've done the drawings manually and you've got your quantities that way, or you've been given a list, or you've done a site visitation, and you basically know exactly what it is that you need. You just need to go find it and say where you need it. Okay. Now, what we're going to do for today is I'm just going to go through the latter of that first. Okay. So I'm just going to go through how we manually add in all of our different items. Okay, and then we'll move across to the PDF, and then I'll show you how we can do the takeoff and move that information across. All right, so the primary way that we envision that you will be sort of going through the database to find the different items is you would click on one of our 8 categories that we have created here. So as an example, I need containment. So I would more than likely go into cable management. When I click on cable management, I will then be presented with all of the manufacturers that EES has in the database with products relating to cable management. So it's going to be tray, trunking, basket, conduit, all of that type of material is all going to be under cable management. So I can straight away come down here and go, right, what I actually need for this is some cable ladder, some Swifts, go for that. So it's just cable ladder. There's only one choice in there. Obviously, if I was to show you here on the channel, it's a bit more specific. It's going to, you're referring to the actual sort of tray that's steel. You're referring to the brackets and everything, but this one doesn't have as many options in. So depending which one of these you click on depends how many options will actually display up there at the top. But either way, once you've actually found the item it is that you are looking for, sorry, I've completely lost myself there. There we are, ladder. All right, and I go into there. I then have my variety then of different sizes. So I have 150, 3, and obviously you can see all the rest there. So simply click onto the one which you need. So I'm going to say I need the 450. And in here, I then have my list of all of my different fittings, as well as being able to actually find the list of the risers and the actual tray per meter itself as well. And we've got a few different versions of that as well, okay? So once you've actually got exactly what it is that you need, all you have to do is find the relevant item and then simply type in your meterage, because this one is a per meter on the ladder. So I can turn around and go, I need 10 meters of that. But then what I also might need is 2 T's, and I might have a few bends in there as well. We'll say we have 5 of those bends. Okay, and once you've got everything off the list that you need, you can simply press the confirm button, which will then add all of the items on screen for you. Once you've got the items on screen, you can start to review the information. So as we can see here, this is line 1, 2, and 3. I can then see how many of these I have entered. I can then see the individual installation time that has been allowed against each one of these items, and then the total, that total labor cost. So that is actually using my hourly rate, my first hourly rate that was created up in the system initially. Okay. Now, this is probably something that is going to be quite important for you. Obviously, one of the main things that you're going to want to do is make sure that the first labor rate, the bit we looked at the start, is actually using your most sort of default labor rate that you're going to want it to be, basically. Okay, so that means that when it comes into here, it's going to automatically choose the correct labor rate for you, and you don't have to worry about changing or using multiple different labor rates. Okay, but however, if your first option you drop down is not the primary choice that you need to do for this particular project, something that you can do either after you put in your takeoff lines or something that you can do before is you can come down here onto the labor factors button. Simply give that button a click, and you can see here that mine is actually set by default to use my approved electrician. Okay, but if I actually wanted to say everything I wanted to go in today was actually just going to go under my electrician option, which is in at a higher rate, I can press on that and then press confirm. Now, all of the items I will now input are going to be using that particular rate. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just input a few more items, and I'll show you how you can visually see that on screen. Okay, so I've added all these in. Now, I just want you to look at here at this column. Now, LT, it stands for labor type, okay? So this was labor type 1. That was my approved electrician. And this one is just my standard electrician here that I've got in at 2, or my higher rate electrician, or whatever other example that is that you want to think of or refer to it as. Okay, so that's how I can visually tell which one it is that I'm using. So now I've selected option 2. All the items I will put in will by default now for this project alone go in at option 2. If I need to change any of the information for lines that I've already done, just like the ones that I've got here on screen, simply click on it. And then what you should be able to do is literally just type over it. So I can go to enter. And did you see the labor rate change on that one? So what I'll do, just watch this button here. Okay, sorry, this cell here, so 114, and I'll change this over to 2 now. And as soon as I hit enter, there we are. We can see that that's gone up to £139. Okay, so you can see that change happening live on screen. This also does mean that you have the capability to use multiple different labor rates in different locations or different aspects of it. So if you needed a particular bit of the project to only be done in out of hours, you would set up an out of hours option on the labor rate. And when you input these particular items, you'd make sure that it has the correct labor type being associated against it. Okay, so this is how you can tell everything that's being built up when you add in your items. So back to actually inputting the items. Like I said, if this is what we think that you'll be going through and trying to find the items of, okay? But admittedly, if you can't find a particular item that you're looking for, or you're not really too fond of this type of menu, I would recommend that you use the advanced search option up here on the top left. Simply give that button a press, and then this will then bring you up an entire list of all of the manufacturers that we have in the system without EES's additional categorization being applied to it. So I can come down the list, and if I wanted to see everything in the system that's offered by BG Electrical, I can go in there and I can see everything that's offered by them. So these are their individual sub ranges that just give you a brief description of what the items are, and then you can see all of the items within that range here. And obviously, if this is something that you'd want to use, simply give that a double click. That's then going to open it up and then going to allow you to input on the quantity box how many of these items that you would need. So for argument's sake, I'm going to say I need 6 of these items. Then press confirm, and that puts it live on screen. There is a couple of other options in the advanced search that you can do as well. If you would prefer to actually search up items via a description or a code, you can actually do that from within this menu. You can use this one here for obviously the description and this one here for the particular code. Or alternatively, you can just use this big search box that's up here for either of those two things, okay? Either the individual description of the item or the actual code itself. So once again, I'll go for the good old K2747 white, press enter. That will take me straight to the item, ask me how many of these I need. I'll say I need 4 of these, and I'll press confirm, and that's now built it up on screen for me. Okay, so they're the sort of 2 different ways that we're sort of, or 3 if you'd like to think of it that way, of sort of navigating around the database to find any of the particular items in which you would need. Occasionally, you are going to end up in a bit of a situation where you can't find an item. Maybe that's because you just can't find it because you don't know where it is in the database, or it's not in the database, or maybe you simply just don't have the time to look for it. Okay. Now, if you are in any of those instances, what you are going to want to use is this button down here referred to as non-standard. Okay, so you can click here on non-standard. This will then give you a list of the same material categories that we use. This will become apparent why later on. Okay, so choose whichever one is going to be the most suitable for what you're doing. Just in case none of them are, we have added in a little miscellaneous option there as well. But I'm just going to go for socket switches and spares. Okay, and I'm going to press confirm, and maybe it's a particular type of back box. It's a particular type of back box. I'm going to say how many of these have I got in? I need 10 of these as an example. So we'll just do that. No, it's not necessarily the same, but it can be for what we're doing, okay? And I can say how long these are going to take to install. So I'm going to give this an allowance of 20 minutes. I don't know what my trade price minus the discount is. I just know that we're paying about £1.25 for each one of these, okay? And I can just press confirm, and that's now going to input it there. And I'm hoping you guys can all see this, but it's used a sort of different color, like a bluey green sort of color, just so visually you can tell that this is a manual item that you've inputted, just for easy association. Okay, so that non-standard's always there for the particular items that you can't find in the system. Okay, you do have the ability to actually save non-standards. Okay, but we call that contractor's choice, which is this bit up here at the top. So you can come into contractor's choice, and you actually got all of this, which you can completely customize. You can make all of your own main indexes and sub-index, and finally your items within there, just to store in any particular item, say a particular lighting manufacturer that you always use that isn't in the database. Something like that is something that's quite commonly added into contractor's choice, or you might just want to build up a couple of items for some type A and type B light fittings where it's very generic and will change each project. Once again, this is going to be an ideal sort of thing for that if you want to go down that route. Once again, if you want to know anything more about contractor's choice, just pop it in the Q&A bit, and we'll run through that a little bit more at the end. Okay. Right, and then eventually you're going to get to a stage of where you are going to have to add in something into the particular project, which is going to be quite a rather large quotation, right? Now, if you are having to put in a rather large quotation, say like a lighting package, I need to allow for a £5,000 lighting package as an example. So I can go to ground floor lighting, and rather than using non-standard, because this is quite an expensive item, I want to keep this a little bit separate from the rest of my generic items. So what I'm going to use is this button here instead, subcon and special. So subcontract work and specialist quotation. This is going to be perfect if you have to bring anyone in to do CCTV, underfloor heating, ventilation, or any of the other examples that you can see there on screen, to be honest. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to make an allowance for a lighting package. So I'm going to go for lighting. If you do need to add any more options in here, just press add new. Scroll down to the bottom of the list and just type it in. But lighting's completely fine for me. So I'm going to press confirm. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to write a bit of a generic description for us. We'll just say lighting package. I've got one lot of this. And roughly I've worked it out to it's going to take me about 4 hours to fit all of these. And like I said, the lighting package itself was quoted at £5,000. So I'll press confirm. Once again, it's showing up visually as a different color. So once again, you can tell exactly what that item is without having any confusion on that. Okay. Now, the good thing is about manual items that you've inputted, if you realize something's wrong, obviously you can just click on it. You can alter the description. Of course, we've changed the quantities, the hours, the cost, whatever it is that we need to actually update. So if I actually wanted to split my lighting packages up between ground floor and first floor, like I've done here, I can actually say that £5,000 is just for the ground floor. And then what I can do is I can actually copy this for the first floor, right click, paste, lighting package, and then I'm going to just put 2 on this, right? So I've got lighting package and my lighting package 2, my second quotation. One lot. This is nearly half of the work, so that's only going to be 2 hours, and roughly these lights are going to be about sort of £2,000 on the quotation. So you see, I'm not having to go back on subcon and write all this information in again. I can just update that live on screen. Okay, just a little questions popped up. We'll quickly go through it now. I just used to use the quick price to price up materials and labor on Dayworks jobs, which is listed material and labor. How can I get this on the new one? Is that one of the old modules from the system, Tom? If it is, I will talk to you about that after the session. Okay, on that one, I'll come back to you on the quick price. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. So just looking back at this then. Okay, so there we are, showing you how to add in manual items yourself, how you can actually add on the particular individual subcontract quotations and everything else, and how you can input your own items. Okay, now something I actually did a little bit wrong when I actually did the quote, okay, is I was actually putting in some of my small power items inside of my containment section. Of course, this is the case. You do have complete control. You can copy, cut, and of course paste all your information and move that around exactly where it should be, rather than the one you accidentally inputted it into. Okay, so that's realistically the basics on how you can manually build up all of your items on the screen here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just switch us over to the PDF takeoff side of things as well. Okay, so I'm just going to switch to the PDF here. Right, and now the first thing that I actually need to do is actually just load up my my individual drawing up onto this page. Okay, so what I'm going to want to do is come up to actually minimize out of the software first. Apologies, because we need to get the drawings off of our local machine, because I'm doing this on the cloud version. Like I said, if you have this locally installed, the step I'm about to show you can effectively skip. Okay, so just minimize this. Here is my particular drawings that I want to use. I've got a whole folder full of them. So I can input the individual PDFs, or I can copy the folder itself. I'm going to copy the entire folder. So I'm going to right click and copy it. And then just going to move back onto the cloud. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the top left, and I'm going to click on the little yellow folder icon. Oh, sorry, that's the blue folder icon. My mistake. There we are, yellow folder icon. I'm going to go inside my drawings folder, which you'll hopefully already have created for yourselves. And I'm just going to right click and then paste this information in here. Okay, so that's now uploaded that from my computer onto my cloud account. So now what I can do is now I can simply open the drawing. So I say I want to open up this electrical drawing, and now press open. and that will then load it up live on my screen for me, okay? Now, the first thing we are going to want to do upon opening the drawing is set and check the scale of this, okay? So I'm just going to use my mouse wheel. I'm going to roll it, so I'm going to put my mouse where I want to zoom in, and I'm going to roll my mouse wheel slowly towards the monitor, all right? Now I'm going to recenter my mouse, and that's what it is. A lot of roll, recenter, roll, recenter, roll, recenter. Once you get used to it, you become very accurate, very quick, and you can start to sort of speed up the zoom in and out process, okay? Just stick with it, and it can work. If you are having big problems with the zoom in and out, it can be turned off in your preferences, and then you would have to use these zoom in and out magnifying glasses up here. Anyway, back to what we were initially looking at, which was the scale of the drawing. So it says it's 1 to 50 at A1. The software actually says it's A3, not A1, which means that the scale of 1 to 50 is probably incorrect. But just for the benefit of the group, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to 1 to 50, and I'm going to check to see what it is, okay? So what I'm going to do is find something on my particular drawing that I know the distance of, so I know roughly what a doorway should be. So there we are. I've zoomed into where I want to do. What I want to do is just come up here to the top, select my measure distance tool, and make sure I've inputted the scale which was indicated on the drawing. So I'm going to go for the 1 to 50. Now, I do not believe this is going to be correct because of the paper size being different. So I'm just going to left click at one side of the doorway, and then I'm going to left click at the other side of the doorway, and we can see that's 463 mil, which we know is nowhere near the size of a door. Okay, so the scale size is wrong. What you want to do to work this out is, okay, click on your drop down, press the option of custom, and then click here on these 3 dots on the side. Now, just like what we did with the ruler tool a second ago, left click at one side of the door, then left click at the other side of the door, and now roughly tell it what you believe that this distance should be, okay? So I believe this distance should be somewhere between 850 to 900 mil. So I'm going to go for the 850 on the shorter side, and I'm going to press OK. That has given me a scale to 1 to 93, which I know the scale is not going to be okay. So there's going to be a rounding element there. Maybe I should have gone for the 1 to 900. It might have, maybe I should have gone for the 900. It might have put me a little bit more accurate. Okay. But either way, now all I have to do is actually round that up or down to where I believe the correct scale is, which is going to be 1 to 100. I'm just as a double check again, I'm just going to grab the ruler. I'm going to measure the doorway and make sure everything is coming up as expected. So 935 in that doorway, that's absolutely fine. If I check this toilet one, that's 850. So I'm completely fine now that I have got the correct scale set. Okay, that is the most important thing that we must do before we start doing any of the takeoff. Okay. Now it's just a case of deciding where on this particular drawing I would like to sort of start from. Now, to be honest, this drawing is a little bit busy and there's quite a lot going on. A few sort of lines here, there, and everywhere. It makes it a little bit difficult to sort of read it in some of the areas. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do now is just come up here onto this layers tab. I'm going to click on layers, which is then going to show me. Now, not all drawings will retain their layers from the design side, okay? But fortunate for me, this one has. So what I can actually do is I can actually start to turn the framework of the building off a little bit, just like that. So I can actually see the takeoff lines a little bit more rather than just the design of the building. And of course, at any point, I can always turn that back on as well, okay? So that's always something that you can do is you can actually just turn certain functions on and off to actually make it a little bit easier when actually going around and looking around the drawings and seeing these particular areas. So if I wanted to get rid of the room numbers, the sanitary fittings, hub shadings, and just a couple of other little bits which I think are not necessarily too relevant for the actual takeoff in which that I'm doing. Okay. So if I just turn the building layer off like that a little bit, we can all see that a little bit easier. Once again, this is going to be down to a preference of how much you want to turn off or leave on, and of course, what layers are going to be available. Now, to get us started, find what item it is that you want to start off by counting or measuring. There is no right or wrong way of doing this takeoff. It's your preferred method. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my preferred color. I'm initially just going to start with red. Okay, I'm going to go for these double sockets. So they're blue, so I'm going to do it in red, so it should contrast nice and differently. Obviously, if you're marking red items with red, it's going to be visually just a bit harder to see. Okay. Now in the services, you can be as detailed as what you want to be. You can say specifically what it is that you are counting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try generalize this a little bit, and I'm actually just going to say what section I want the items to go into. Okay, so I'm actually just going to say that this particular section that I'm working on, right, I just want all of this just to go into my small power section when I read it into the estimating. So that's all I'm going to refer to it as is small power. Now, there's one thing in the estimating I didn't touch on, okay, and that was this assemblies button. Now, what assemblies are, if you ever heard of assemblies previously, or you might have heard them referred to as composites or kits, they are grouped together items. Okay, so exactly here where I have my two gang double sockets up here, what I have the ability to do is go into my assemblies, because I know that I've actually created various different sort of switches and sockets that I can use. So if I just come down here to the MK switch socket 2 gang and I view this, you can see I've actually created this one up. So it'll do my back box, a switch socket, and it'll actually do some twin and earth cable allowance for me. So I'm not having to count up it. I'm not having to count up each item twice. I'm also not having to work out the amount of cable I'm going to need per point either. I've already sort of preset that. Why basically spend 5 minutes each time doing these exercises when you can spend 5 minutes doing it once and then know that you don't need to necessarily worry about it too much from that point onwards, sorry. So this is the one I'm going to go for. So I'm going to press confirm. And now all I have to do is just go over where I have one, and I just do a little left click, and that's going to put a mark there on the screen. Now I'd say straight away, if that mark is not big enough for what you want, just undo it. Come here to your line scale, change it up to a bigger size, reselect your item, and then try again. There we are. I might go, this one's a lot bigger now because it's going to take up a lot more on the screen. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. Once again, this is a personal preference, right? So I'm just going to go around and I can count up all of these that I can see in these various different areas that I've got basically. Now to drag myself around, I don't want to use my left click, okay? Because if I do my left click, look what happens. I accidentally do counts, okay? So you don't want to do that. What you want to do instead is try and push and hold down your mouse wheel, okay? Try push and hold it down. That should then allow you to then drag the screen around so you can move, and then use your left clicks to count up the actual symbols that you need to, okay? So like I said, try and not use your left click to drag around. Try use the mouse wheel. It's definitely going to make it a lot easier and a lot smoother experience for you. Once you're done counting up that particular fitting, just right click so it gets rid of the crosshair, and then simply just go back into your database and find the next set of items that you want to be counting. So once again, I'll go into assemblies. I'll just go for some switch grids one way, confirm. Now, if I want to, I can do this in a different color, just so visually on screen, I can see that it's different. So if it's a red mark, I know it's a socket. If it's a green mark, I know it's a switch. Okay. Once again, set it up to how you need it to work. But do bear in mind, when you change the color, it clears out the service list. But don't worry, as soon as I type S back in, small power comes straight back up. So I can just re-choose it. So now I can go around and I could count up my switches. Obviously, if I went, oh, that's a bit too big for them, or I want to lower that down, I can lower that down a halfway round when I'm doing it. It's completely up to me. Once again, it's all down to my preference. So how we actually do unit counts is no different, regardless if it's a a socket, a switch, or a light fitting. Okay, it's all exactly the same process on the system. Okay, the only thing that is of course different is when you're going to be wanting to come around and do any of your linear things for, say, the cable tray, basket, or trunking. Okay, so as an example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some trunking round the perimeter of around some of the rooms, right? What we'll go for is we will go for this sort of just main little corridor that we've got sort of going on along down here, and we'll sort of follow that up into here, okay? So I'm now going to go back to my settings, and now I can now change color, or I could leave it in green. That doesn't matter too much, but either way, I don't want to say small power. I want this to say containment. And if you wanted to abbreviate this at this stage, you can, because it's only for your own reference, okay? And what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to go into the assemblies. I'm going to go for cable management, because I know I've got some trunking ones set up where it's actually going to do the trunking, the covers, the couplings, the wood screws, and the wall plugs. Okay, so I know it's going to do absolutely everything I need it to, as and when I need it. I'm going to use the single compartment one though. I'm going to press confirm to that, and then all I'm doing is just going to map the run where the trunking is going to go, or where the tray or the basket or whatever it is that you would need. Okay, so I'm just going to left click from here. I'm then going to left click into this corner, just draw my nice little green line. I'm going to use my mouse wheel trick to drag myself down so I can see better. I'm going to left click there to map that bit in, and then bring it all the way down there to the door, and then right click to then lock that in. Realistically, I would have 2 additional bends that I would need to count there. So that would be a trip back into the database to then go find the particular items I need, my internal and external bends, and do 2 counts either side, just like what we've done with the sockets and switches. Okay, so that's the 2 things that you will be doing in this. You'll either be doing your counts or you'll be doing your linear measures, regardless of the material type that you will be doing it for. Okay, then once you've actually completed the drawing, of course, I'm not going to complete this one. You don't want to just sit here and watch me do takeoff, I'm sure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to move all of that information we've just took off and directly input that into my two different sections I have here for my first floors. So I'm going to go for the PDF takeoff now. Okay, and what you need to make sure is you are in the job that you want it to go into and that you are on the takeoff page, this page that I have open now. Okay, so then just go back to the PDF. And then what you want to do is just come up here and you want to press this button, export to estimating. Now, please do remember all of the buttons up here along the top will all say exactly what they do if you hover over them. Okay, so just in case you forget, you can always hover over it and it will always tell you. You'll always find it. So give that a click. That should then come up with your jobs code and your job name that you've just inputted. If it doesn't, then simply just give us a call, okay? And then we can get that all sorted for you if you ever do run into that particular instance. And then just press confirm. That's then going to tick everything down there to tell you that's successfully been sent over. And then to switch back into the estimating. But you have to remember, I've got two services, right? So it could never automatically just pick one of these sections to go into, okay? We have to tell it which one to go to. So now what I want to do is just press my big orange import PDF button down here on the bottom left. And that's now coming up with the free different colors and services that we used on that particular job. So I've got two here for small power. I want to go in small power first of all, so I'm going to highlight that one. I'm also going to hold control on the keyboard and click on this one as well to do double select. You can just drag it down with your mouse if you know that method. Either way, it's absolutely fine, or you could read each one in one at a time. You're not going to break anything. So I've got these two, that's these items, and I want that to go just there. Perfect. Import. That's now imported those items, but now I want my containment to go in first floor containment, import. And that's now moved that information across. Now there's nothing else available here, so that means I'm finished. I can now press exit, and there is all of my trunking that we just made the allowances for. And if I come down here to the first floor on the small power, we can see all of my sockets and switches that I made the allowances for as well, okay? But then please do remember, after you have imported your PDF into the estimating, make sure you come back up here to the top and that you click save, and you save it with like your initials or done or EES at the end, so you know that this particular drawing here is finished. You just click save, and then you simply just go open, yes, and then you would move on to your next drawing that you wanted to work on, okay? And then from there, you'd complete this one and then read that into the estimating until you've run out of your drawings. And then you basically get to the end of the project at the stage to where you're going, I have now finished my particular project that I'm working on. I've now got all of the various different items I actually wanted to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press continue and move us forward onto stage 3. Now, a few of you may have noticed that I've got a few warning triangles that have popped up in these two areas here, okay? My honest advice is don't worry about that at this stage, okay? Because once you move on to stage 3 is called unpriced items, or the warning triangle page is a better way of thinking of it, because that's where it's going to grab all of the warning triangles from the entire job and put it all up here on one screen for you to review and alter if you need to. So things will flag up with warning triangles if quantity, hours, cost, or discount is empty, okay? And that will cause it to flag up in here. Now, some of those values should be empty. For example, hours on wall plugs to put into a wall. Not exactly a lot of labor time needs to be associated against that, or washers or nuts or anything like that. They are not going to have labor time in. That's pretty standard on the database. If you would like to alter that and you do want to associate a time to it so it doesn't flag up for you, simply just input quite a bit of a low labor time or whatever labor time you believe is suitable and just hit enter, and that will lock that one in. Okay, so that will no longer flag up as an issue. If you are missing a cost, you'll probably find that that is for a manual item you have entered in, which may or may not be okay, depending on your situation. But if you are missing a discount like I am with this particular item here, what you can do is obviously just go to your wholesaler, find out what discount you get for the particular products. I would say if you've got a rather long list, though, of discounts that are missing, come down here, untick the hours and cost one, so you're only left with discounts that are missing, and then you can press generate report here, which will then produce it as a list of the items with the product codes on, so you can send that big list back off to the wholesaler, get him to actually fill it in with what your discounts are or your net rates, so then you can much easily just come back here and fill that information in. Just as an FYI, if you are filling out discount percentages, please do make sure when you fill them in that you type in minus whatever your discount is. If you were to just do it as 50%, you will uplift the price by 50% rather than reducing the price by 50%. Just be careful of that one. And just anytime you input a discount on a job, it will always ask you this question. Are you doing this as a one-off because for this particular project, or would you like to update this discount percentage onto your master discount table so this item will not pop up in question again? Of course, that might be dependent on the line and what you're actually doing at that moment in time, but you always get the option, okay? Right, and just press confirm, and there we are. I've fixed everything which the system believes would be an issue. I didn't have to, but I've just shown you the process, okay? Once you're happy with all of that, press continue. If it's your first time getting to calculate, this is then going to go through automatically for you, okay? And that will then throw you out here onto the summary table, okay? Now, if this isn't your first time calculating a project because you've been back and forth a few times whilst you were working on it, or you're revisiting a project that you were pricing 6 months ago, okay, whenever you actually get to the stage of calculate now, you will be presented with these 4 options. One is the retained material prices. So this will keep all of the old material rates exactly the same as they were and recalculate any brand new items that have been added in. The manual update button will actually show you what items have changed and show you the new price and the old price. So you can pick and choose which one you'd like to update in like a yes or no scenario. Automatic update, of course, does what it says on the tin. It's going to automatically update everything to the most current database prices it can be for you. And do not calculate is basically do not change any of the values. There is a time and a place for each one of those buttons. And if you ever do accidentally click on the wrong one, just give us a call on the support line, and the people and the lads in support will be able to sort that out for you straight away. Okay, that's should be a nice, relatively easy fix for you. Okay. Like I said, there's a time and a place for each one. If you're coming back and altering a project that you've done from 6 months ago and it's agreed that those prices are fixed, except for the few items that you're inputting in, you're definitely going to want to use retain or manual in that scenario. If you're coming back from a job you've done last year and it's agreed that you can use today's prices, of course, you could just hit that with the automatic update, and that's going to update a quotation that you've done from last year's price to today's price in a few seconds for you. And of course, you're going to get to a few situations where you don't want anything to change at all because you've not done anything. You're just trying to look at a bit of information in the job. That's when you hit the do not calculate button, okay? You can just click that and then move on forward. Okay, so a little question just come up. Can you add different uplift costs? 15% on lighting, 20% general, and 5% on subcontracts. Yes, we can on that one, Matthew. That's exactly this page here for the summary table. Okay. So there's 2 ways that summary tables is mostly used. Of course, there's a variety of different things we can do on here, but I'm just going to go through these 2 main ways. And one of them, Matthew, is the way that you're asking about. So you can either mark up the entire job as a whole, okay, and that would be using these buttons down here called overhead and profits. Okay, if you don't want to mark everything up by the same percentages and we want to do, like the example says, 15 on lighting, 20 on everything else, and 5% on subbies, that is then where we would use this on cost percentage up here along the top. Okay, and this is there where it's given us the variety of the different material ranges plus the subcontract quotation which we inputted. So up here is exactly where we would do that. Okay, so if I said I don't have a lighting category because I used lighting for a subcontractor, but I'll say 15% on my socket switches and spares, and then I'll say 20% on everything else, including my labor. Now, on the subcontract one, okay, it doesn't let you write it in on this line. What you have to do is just click on the little button at the end, because you could have 5 different subcontract quotes in there, and maybe you want to mark up each subcontract quote differently, okay? But just click that. Here's the line, lighting. Once again, use the on cost. I'll put 5% there. I'll go back to summary table, and this is what we're looking at. 15% across one particular material group, 20% across everything else except for subbies, which is in at a 5%. Okay, so that's how that one's done on that one, Matthew. I hope that answers your question. Okay, so that is how you do your individual markups. Like I said, you can either do it that way if you do want to break your materials and labor up a little bit more, or you can just do your markup down here on the overhead and profit. But basically the way that you read this screen is you start up here on your top left, okay? You see your material groups. That's telling you how much each one of these groups is basically costing you. You can use this inflation box to slightly make any alterations to your cost percentage. So that's what inflation's there for. Okay, the inflation percentage will not classify as like a profit increase, right? That's you physically saying, no, EES, I don't believe my cost is going to be 217. I believe my cost of that is going to be more on the 300 side of things. Okay, so I can put 50% inflation on that if I think that's going to go up, or maybe 50% is a bit large. We'll go for 20. Okay, and you can do little bits like that and then decide how much and go, this is my actual cost now. These are my markup percentages. These are how much we're marking it up by. There's a little total for that figure. And then this is now our grand total that we're currently trying to sell the project out at. Like I said, if you don't use these ones and you want to do it as an overall markup, all right, just make sure that you've got no percentages in the on costs up here at the top. And what we're going to do is mark up just the total figure of that. And then that's where you could say, I'd like to mark it up by, say, 10% for general overhead, which is now added on my extra £1,000. Add these two values together. I then want to make 20% profit. So that's now added on the profit to get me to my net contract cost. Okay, so that's the typical two ways this can be used. Of course, there's probably 1,000,001 ways you can achieve exactly what it is that you want, but that's effectively how you do it. Of course, any other questions anyone have on this, just pop it through the Q&A and I'll try run through a couple of examples. But basically, either way, once we've decided how we want to do our markup, we then have to think, do we need to incorporate things like builder's discount, or maybe refer to it as MCD, main contractors discount? Okay, and if that is the case, you can just come down here and you can just fill in the box basically for the builder's discount. It's still set in the traditional way of doing it as 1/39th as a fraction to cover you for the 2.5% decrease that you're going to get later on. Okay, if you would prefer that box to be done as a percentage rather than as a fraction, we can get that box changed for you. Once again, if anyone's interested, pop it in the Q&A. I'll show you how to do it after. Okay, which then gets us down to our net contract cost. And now we just have to look at adding on some of these final sort of expenses, such as the preliminaries and prime costs and provisional sums, if that is something that you need to incorporate. Now, all of those are just set up here along the top tabs. So we've got the prime cost tabs for primes and provisionals. Simply just overtype the boxes and pop your amounts in there. That's as simple as that's going to get for you. You can apply an on-cost percentage to them as well if you would like. And with the preliminaries, we've actually give you a little bit more flexibility with the prelims. Okay, we give you 3 different ways to input the prelims. So you can input them in as fixed costs or lump sums, is a better way of thinking about it. You know, £200 for this, and then like 300, £600 for that, £300 for this, that sort of thing. Okay, just lump sum amounts. You can do it as a percentage uplift of a particular value. So some people like to allow somewhere between 5 to 10% of the contract value to cover the prelims. Or you could do it as some weekly rates and number of weeks needed, which is perfect for any access or supervision on site. Okay, so you can say supervision, maybe that's something like £600 a week, and they need to be there for 2 weeks. We also have scaffolding there, that's £120, that needs to be there for 3 weeks. And we can mix and match between all 3 of these. Okay, so you see there, I've got 1,100 from just the fixed costs. And then the time related, I've got just over 1,500. So that's then added on down here with the prelims, 2,660 prelims just down there at the bottom. Okay. Now with the prelims, the final thing on that is whether you want that to actually be shown or hidden. Okay, and the show and hidden button is basically this little tick box down here to spread prelims or to show prelims. Okay, so if it's spread, it's going to spread it across everything naturally. You can be a little bit more specific if you wanted to be and say only spread across my materials. Or like I said, you can actually just untick it, and that way the prelims will then just show up at the end of the project. Okay, and another question for the old system on that one. Right, so we've got here another one on the old system, used to be able to apply a hidden markup. Okay, Dave, I'm not too familiar myself with the older system. Okay, let me talk to you after the session and we can go through that a little bit more detail on exactly what that means. And I'm sure we can do exactly what it is that you're after, Dave. Okay, but we'll just go through that at the end. We've got about 5 minutes left on that one. Okay, I'll come back to you. Okay, right. So once you've inputted your prelims and prime costs and provisional sums, that's got you all the way to your final gross contract cost. Okay, so once you've actually got that one in there, this leaves us with the final stage of just looking at printouts in the system. Right now, with the printouts in the software, we have split them up and stored them and put them in two different places, and we refer to them in two different ways. Okay, so we have reports and bills. So reports are for you and bills are for clients. The bills are the actual sort of quotation bit. So we just call that so it's easily distinguishable between the two. So select reports here on the summary table. All of the information in here is all documentation that's internally for you. You know, if you want to see exactly how much markup and prelims and builder's discount is being spread onto each individual section, something like a tender profit summary is going to be an ideal for you to look at. Or if you want an entire list of all the materials that you've used with no prices on, just to send over to the wholesaler to get a rough quote price, material summary unpriced is going to be ideal for that. You know, if you want to see more of a comprehensive labor breakdown, if you've used multiple different labor rates in different places, labor breakdown is going to be good. Honestly, any information you could possibly ever want to know about your project, you can get it from in here in the report section. But please, I know I keep repeating it, but reports are for you, okay? Do not share this information with your client, okay? If you want to see the information that you can send over to the client, simply press the continue button and fly through to the final stages of bills. Just give it a second to generate and load up on your screen for you like this. And what we've got over here on the left-hand side is your summaries. So you can send them either the section, tender, or total summary. You can send them any of those three. It's just a matter of personal preference out of which one of those documents you prefer. I'm going to show you the tender summary, and I'm also going to show you a standard quantified schedule of rates. I know you're not going to send that out as part of the quotation, but we always heavily encourage you to view the schedule of rates just to make sure you're happy with that, because that's obviously what has built up the summary return. And we can actually set up optional client documentation in here. So we can load up your standard list of exclusions or cover letters or anything along those lines as a draft version. And then at this stage, you'll be able to load up the draft and make any adjustments just for this particular project. Okay, anyone that's interested in that, obviously, once again, let us know in the Q&A. So I'm just going to show you the tender summary and the standard quantified schedule of rate, just so you get the idea of what it is that we're looking at. Okay, so I'm going to hit preview and export, which is going to load them up on screen for us. Okay. Now, what we can do is we can actually get your logo letterhead up there. And what you should have up here is a little reminder to sort of tell you that that information's there. All your clients' information, if I just zoom in for our benefit here, all your clients' information is just going to go over here on the left-hand side of your screen, okay, which is why we made sure we filled that bit out at the start. Same thing with the job name itself as well. Like I said, this is information that is going to come out on the quote. So the nicer we make it look at the start, the nicer it's going to look back here. Now, if I just scroll down so we see the bit we're interested in, here is my prelims that I had set to show. So that's been my first section straight away. And then I've got my containment ground floor price, then first floor, and then I have a subtotal price for containment as well. And then same thing with lighting, same thing with small power, and then I've got my total contract cost here. I specifically chose the tender summary because I know it puts the prelims at the top. I know it gives us subtotals for the A sections, and I like the line breaks that you get in there. I find it a bit easier to follow myself. Okay. And then if you want to go and look at the next report, just press the next button down here. And this is going to be my quantified schedule of rates now. Now, you can have your quantified schedule of rates obviously show up with the rates and the quants with no rates. You can have it with your sections or not. I always forget this. That's my prelim breakdown that appears first when you set your prelims to display. Obviously, that's up to you whether you're going to forward that information onto your client, just the same as with this quantified schedule of rates that should generate up now for us. Like I said, you can have this with the quants on show, without the quants, without the rates, without the totals, without your section breakdown. However you need it to be, just let us know. I'm sure we can create it for you. If not, we can always export it out into Word and remove these additional columns that you don't need as well, okay? So once again, let me just zoom in on that for us. So this one is breaking it down per section. So I've got containment, ground floor, then got my items description, my quantity of per item or per meter, depending on what it is, my supply and fit rate for that particular item. Okay, and then what the total cost of all that is there. And then once again, the subtotal of each section, which is going to correspond to those summaries that we were just looking at. Okay, now for any of the bills or reports that you've seen in the system, okay, obviously, if you want to export that and get it out of the system, if you have this locally installed, Okay, you might not have this export report button down here. You might have to use this export option up here. Okay, so you can just click that. That allows you to search for your storage and save it whichever file format that you would like to. Okay, I believe for the cloud users, this is something that's been new, that's been added. Okay, this quick export option, so you can select your preferred file format of PDF, Word, and Excel, and then you can hit export report, which then allows you to just go in the exact same save menu. Okay, so no real difference to pressing that button up there at the top. That's then going to, if you're on the cloud, that's going to save in a nice little sort of reports folder for you here, okay, for your particular section. So we can just save that one in there. And if you are, of course, doing this on the local version, you can obviously save that wherever you need to. But on the cloud, that instantly pops straight back up for you. So we can then copy that information from here. We can then minimize from the cloud platform. And then I can just right click and I can then paste that now back onto my personal desktop, which I can now just open up in whatever PDF viewer you would like. And if I zoom in, you can see there the quality. I actually find that the quality of that usually goes up once you get it out of our sort of preview menu. It exports it a lot nicer than it previews it, in my opinion. But there we are. We've got that bit there, and then you would actually be able to actually sort of send your quotation off and do everything else. When it actually comes round to actually being in the estimating and saying, right, this project's done now, I want to sort of save it and finish it, all you have to do is just press exit job and then yes, and the system will save that for you all automatically. Okay. So that's the very much the basics of how you go through EES on the estimating and also how to use it with the PDF takeoff as well. I know obviously we've answered a few Q&As that have popped up as we've been going along, but obviously now we're at the end of the session. So if anyone does have any other additional questions, just pop them through from the Q&A, or like I said, if you prefer, you can just raise your hand with the group and I can allow you to speak and we can go over absolutely anything. Obviously, it can be things that we've either covered today and we can have a little recap, or it can be just in relation to any other things that you can think of. Anyone, so with regards to Tom and Dave, Tom, I'll come back to you with regards to the quick price just after the session. I'll give you a little bit of a call on that one, and same with you, Dave. I'll give you a call personally, and we can go through those in a little bit more detail on a one-to-one basis. Okay, but if anybody else has any other questions at all, please feel free to just pop them all through, and we can go through them all together. All right, there's one that's come through from Anonymous. What is the difference between the cost between the local and the cloud-based version? I don't particularly know too much, 'cause I don't really deal with it with the sales side of things too much on that one. But of course, if you are interested on moving on to the cloud version of the system, right, and firing about it, there might not actually be any additional cost implications. You would have to check with the sales team though. Just hit support up here, fire us across an email, or just submit it as a ticket, and I know that one of the salesman people will get back to you. And then what is the cost for the PDF license? And do we offer free trials? Once again, we would have to go through onto the salesman's, we'd have to go through to the salesman with regards to finding out that information on that one. Like I said, just pop it through to our email address. Obviously say, you're interested in the cloud and the PDF takeoff. One of the salesmen will be sure to be straight away in contact with you, okay? And they'll discuss all of these little things with you. And I'm sure they can accommodate for exactly what it is that you need and sort of want to try on that one. Okay, so no problems on that one. I'd say just email support, best thing to do. Hopefully that's those two all sorted. Hopefully that answers your question on that one. And of course, anything else, feel free just to pop them through, guys. But if not, if you're happy with everything that you've seen and gone through today, please feel free to leave the session at any point. If you would like to have a bit more of a one-to-one of these sessions, we can organise some online training sessions with yourselves, all completely free of charge. Like I said, one-to-one online, and we can go through it that way and do it a little bit more personal. If there's certain things that you perhaps don't want to mention or go over in front of everyone, then we can do those types of things as well as the webinars. We will be doing future webinars in the future as well, just so everyone is aware of that. And I'm sure we will be sending the emails out and posting it all on our social media when we have the next webinars available. So I'm hoping that you have all found this session helpful. This session will also be recorded and put onto YouTube as well, so you will be able to go back and recap on any of these sessions, plus also watching any of the additional YouTube videos which are there already. But either way, thank you all for attending today. It does mean a lot to see you all here, and I'm hoping that we'll all see you again in the future. Like I said, I'll leave the session open for 2 more minutes just to let any other questions come through. But other than that, guys, please feel free to leave unless you want to hang around for the questions or you have anything to ask yourselves.